Here is what nobody tells you about burning fat. Your body is not a machine that runs on a single fuel source. It is constantly choosing between burning carbohydrates and burning stored fat. The intensity of exercise decides which fuel source your body uses. And most people have no idea how to trick their body into using stored fat as fuel. What you are about to find out challenges the way most people think about exercise and fat loss entirely. We are going to break this down into 3 parts: running, walking, and what actually determines your results long term. By the end of this video, you will never think of exercise the same again. But before we break a sweat, make sure you are subscribed to The Wellness Method so you never miss one of your favorite science-backed wellness videos. When most people think about burning fat through exercise, running is usually one of the first things that comes to mind, and for good reason. The moment you break into a run, your muscles start burning through energy at a rate walking simply cannot match. To keep up with that demand, your body reaches for its fastest available fuel source, carbohydrates, which are stored in your muscles as glycogen. Glycogen is the most accessible form of energy for your body to use and can be delivered quickly enough to sustain your running pace. Body fat requires more time to convert into usable energy, so while it is still being burned, glycogen takes over as the dominant fuel source at typical running speeds. That trade-off comes with a significant upside, though. In a direct treadmill comparison, the same subject burned about 135 calories running 1 mile versus 107 calories walking the same distance, roughly a 25% increase per mile. And because you cover that mile faster, the calories burned per minute can end up being around twice as high as an easy walk. That higher calorie burn matters because fat loss is ultimately driven by a consistent energy deficit over days and weeks, not a single workout. Running does not magically melt fat on its own, but it does make that deficit easier to create in less time. But that's not the whole story. Running does not just affect what happens during the workout. It changes what happens to your body afterwards, too. For some people, a hard run temporarily blunts appetite immediately after they finish. For others, that same effort triggers serious hunger later in the day. Hunger that can quietly erase a large chunk of the calorie deficit they just worked so hard to create. There is also the question of what a hard run does to the rest of your day. Scientists call it NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just a fancy term for all the calories you burn outside of formal exercise. Fewer steps, more time on the couch. It adds up more than most people realize. And if a hard run is quietly reducing your NEAT, it can chip away at your total energy expenditure and calories burned throughout the day. Another reason why running can work against belly fat in particular is because when you push your body into high-intensity effort, it releases cortisol, a stress hormone that has been directly linked to increased abdominal fat storage. Your belly fat cells have a higher concentration of receptors that respond to cortisol by holding on to fat rather than releasing it. So paradoxically, the harder you push, the more you may be signaling your body to protect the very fat you are trying to lose. Running is a genuinely powerful fat loss tool, but the workout is only half the story. Your cortisol response, how your body responds in the hours after you finish, how hungry it makes you, how much you move for the rest of the day. These factors all come together to shape your real-world results. Now let's talk about walking and why it might be doing more for your fat loss than you think. When you slow things down to a walk, something shifts in the way your body fuels movement. Because the intensity is lower, your body has time to tap into a slower, more efficient energy system, one that relies more heavily on stored fat than glycogen. In one treadmill comparison of matched calorie workouts, incline walking derived about 40% of its energy consumption from fat, compared with roughly 33% during running, even though the total calories burned were exactly the same. That is a meaningful difference, and it is one that most people never consider when they write walking off as not a real workout. Walking also places far less stress on your body than running. Your heart rate rises more gently, your breathing stays controlled, and the impact on your joints is significantly lower. That lower stress means faster recovery, and faster recovery means you can do it again tomorrow and the day after that. Most people can walk for longer durations, more regularly throughout the week, without feeling sore or drained afterward, and that consistency adds up. There is a name for the physiological state walking puts you in. Zone 2. It is the intensity range where your heart rate is elevated enough to burn fat efficiently, but low enough that cortisol stays controlled. And when cortisol is low, your body is far more willing to release stored fat, including that stubborn abdominal fat. Walking also changes what happens after your workout, but in a very different way than running does. Because the intensity is lower, walking is far less likely to trigger the kind of hunger spike that hard running can produce. You may feel ready to eat after a long walk, but it rarely creates that "I could eat everything in sight" response that intense exercise sometimes does. And because walking leaves you feeling less wiped out, it is much easier to keep moving throughout the rest of your day, maintaining the kind of background activity that quietly keeps your NEAT elevated and your overall calorie burn higher than you might expect. Timing your walks strategically can amplify this even further. Research published in the journal Diabetes Care found that walking for just 10 minutes immediately after a meal produces significantly better blood sugar and insulin control than walking at other times of the day. Lower insulin means your body spends more time in fat-burning mode rather than fat storage mode. 3 10-minute walks after breakfast, lunch, and dinner adds up to 30 minutes of highly effective fat loss activity without ever changing into gym clothes. Walking does not burn as many calories per minute as running, but calorie for calorie, it draws more of that energy from stored fat. And for most people, it is the kind of movement they can actually keep doing day after day, week after week. So, does running or walking win when it comes to fat loss? Here is the truth, and it may not be the answer you were hoping for. There is no universal winner. Because the best exercise for fat loss is not the one that burns the most calories in a single session. It is the one you can recover from, repeat consistently, and sustain long enough for the results to actually show up. Running is time efficient and burns more calories per minute. If you enjoy it, recover well from it, and it does not leave you ravenous or wiped out, it is an incredibly powerful fitness and fat loss tool. But if it leaves you sore, hungry, and dreading the next session, that efficiency disappears quickly. Walking burns fewer calories per minute, but it draws more of them from stored fat. It keeps cortisol low, and it is the kind of movement most people can sustain indefinitely. For many people, especially those carrying stubborn belly fat, that combination quietly and consistently outperforms the occasional hard run over time. Not because walking is easier, but because it works with your biology rather than against it. That is why the best exercise for fat loss is not always the one that feels hardest in the moment. If you are currently sedentary, walking is almost always the best place to start. It is lower impact, easier to fit into daily life, and far less likely to leave you feeling like you need 3 days to recover. From there, you can layer in running if you enjoy it, and your body handles it well. So instead of asking which exercise burns more fat during the workout, start looking at which combination of movements you can keep showing up for week after week, month after month. Walking or running or both, the answer is whichever one fits your body, your life, and your ability to show up consistently over time. If this video gave you a new way to think about your movement and fat loss, make sure you are subscribed to The Wellness Method for more of your favorite science-backed health topics. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.